Oh, yeah, it's Flint Rasmussen inside your radio, outside the barrel.
Happy to have once again on the show. Hey, this is, once you become what we call a friend of the show, that's a big deal. It's monthly with Mason. He is, I'll call him an advocate. Travels around the country talking agriculture, talking wackos, whatever you want to talk about. It's Mr. Damian Mason. How you doing, Damian? Been traveling a little, huh?
Flint, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. Last couple of weeks been gone. San Diego, Phoenix, St. Louis, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I think those were the big highlights of the last 10 days. Talking to organizations about business reinvention, agriculture, etc. I didn't hop in any barrels. I didn't do any of that, but pretty profitable little stint.
So earlier this week, I see you commented on a social media site, and it was an article I picked out because you pointed out about antibiotics in chickens. And again, it comes back a lot to what you and I talk about. What is using science to scare us, using statistics. I mean, I guess the way I look at it, if I have a sick calf, I'm going to give him medicine. I want him to live. I want production. Is it killing us, having antibiotics in our chicken? Because this company came out now and said, hey, we're using antibiotics.
Heck of an idea that they came up with where they're going to be a little bit against trend and say, hey, we're actually going to use antibiotics, and here's why. You know, there's folks that want to be opposed to antibiotics, and it sounds good, it feels good, but they don't realize, okay, well, how do you want those critters? Because remember, they still want to eat meat. Only 2% of this country is vegetarian. So they want to eat meat. What they don't want to do is admit that sometimes critters get sick and sometimes critters need health care. And then they say, well, gosh, I thought we were doing all organic. Okay, are you willing to sit there and watch that calf or that chicken die a slow death without treatment? So that's about feelings, which was what I wanted to tell you about today, Flint. Remember, in the land of the affluent, in the land of the fat and happy, it's never about facts. It's never really about science. It's about feelings. The American consumer is driven by feelings.
Because the science they present us and the statistics they present us appeal and play on our heartstrings and our feelings. Everything goes back to that. Great point, though. We want to eat meat. We want to eat chickens, but you would rather see that chicken die a slow death or that calf than I don't know. I can't even. It just makes me pull my hair out, which is not.
All right, here's what you got to understand, because we in the business of food production, or you in the business of rodeo entertainment, really fight the same battle. There's the consumer of your stuff that gets it, understands it, and they're fans, and they get it. And then there's the detractors that offer to make it not appealing to the fans. And then there's the people in the middle. So it's always the people in the middle. They talk about that with politics. The same thing with what you sell, rodeo entertainment, what we in the business of food production sell, which is, of course, nourishing, safe food. So we talk about a feeling thing. Here's the deal. The people that go out and protest how you treat calves at a calf roping event or those bulls at a professional bull riding event, they do that not because they're really that concerned about the bulls or the calves, believe it or not. They do it because it makes them feel good when they go home at night, when they lay their head down and on their futon in their parents' basement. It makes them feel good that they saved the world today. That's a biggie. And we keep saying, no, scientifically, we're not hurting that bull. No, scientifically, we're using antibiotics to produce great chicken, and we only treat them, systematically, judiciously. You're missing the big point. It's about feelings. The people that protest these things that we normally enjoy and consume are doing it because it makes them feel good that they saved the world. That's what we forget sometimes. It's all about social consciousness.
So is that why now at Walmart there's a category called ugly fruit to make you feel good about giving an ugly peach a chance?
I thought you would never ask, but yes, my blog post of last week, I'm probably going to shoot an article, a video about it as well. The consumer will buy a apple with a blemish on it and feel that they just saved that apple from a certain death and a landfill, which is going to fill up, and then all of a sudden we've degraded the environment. That's why ugly fruit came about.
For real. So you
For real.
feel like you're making a difference.
Yeah, so in my article I pointed out, go ahead.
No, you go.
In my article, Flint, I pointed out that this category, and by the way, for your listeners, you're saying, what does it have to do with me? I'm a rodeo fan. I'm a guy out here in Wyoming. I'm growing hay. I'll tell you why it matters to you. We must realize that there's a segment now that never existed before. In the old days, a crooked carrot, an ugly cucumber, or a blemished apple went to the compost pile, it went to landfill, or it got processed into applesauce or cucumber salad dressing, what have you. Now, Walmart is going to sell ugly fruit. And the idea is we're saving this from the landfill. So think of it. Now the consumer can buy this and say, I can look past that crooked carrot, and I can feed it to my family because that crooked carrot is fine. And it's about making them feel good that they just saved it. I say it's just like rescue dogs. Remember, 20 years ago, the self-respecting, affluent suburbanite would say, I have a purebred Ocelopsa. And now it's a badge of honor for the suburbanite to say, this is a rescue dog. I don't care that he's ugly and has bad breath and his fur falls out. I saved him from the pound. It's the same thing. I saved a blemished apple. I saved this rescue dog, and it makes the consumer, what are we talking about again? Feel good.
Feel good. And they can sit at the dinner table and tell their kids, look, honey, we're eating ugly carrots today. Don't you feel good? Oh, my God. That's right. Ugly food matters. It all does. Damian Mason joining me. It's Monthly with Mason. Been out on the road addressing groups all across the country. You mentioned to me, Damian, you had recently returned from a trip speaking to veterinarians about meat and beef issues. What is it that you talk to veterinarians? Because I would think they're a very receptive crowd because they're very knowledgeable about the things you speak of.
Extremely receptive crowd. Yes, thank you, by the way. And if your listeners are bored, at Damian P. Mason is my Twitter handle. That's at Damian, Damian, P like Patrick, Mason like a bricklayer, at Damian P. Mason. I make my living talking to corporations and associations, mostly of an agricultural matter, all over the country. Last week on Friday, it was with Boehringer Ingelheim Vet Medica Incorporated. They are one of the big six animal health companies. So, just like that post we talked about with antibiotics, yes, there's a place for judicious use of medicines in animals. And with the meat people I was in front of, we talked about that, and I said, here's what you need to realize. The beef industry has to reinvent itself, and so do you as vet beef practitioners.
Interesting. So I've listened to vets talk about that antibiotics, things that people use. I mean, growing up, you always put the pellet in the ear of the calf, the Ralgro deal. Never thought a thing of it. But it's just not. Is it significant? Tell me. The people floating science at our feelings say it's significant.
So we always talk about, of course, is there's the science and there's feelings, like we just covered in the earlier segment pre-commercial, that the consumer is driven by social consciousness and feelings. Now, growing up on the dairy farm that I was raised on here in Indiana, we kept our bull calves. We castrated them. We shot a Ralgro in their ear. They gain maybe 7% faster. That saves feed, makes you more efficient. You and I both understand why we do that. The consumer says, oh, goodness, they're putting hormones in my food. My children have large feet. It must be because of the hormones in the beef. Now, of course, you can scientifically tell them, no, your kid has big feet because he's getting bigger. The point is they are pure hormones. The theme with my client, Boehringer Ingelheim, they had about 60 to 70% of beef cow-calf operators in the country represented, meaning the veterinarians in that room see two-thirds of the cow-calf operations, calves and cows, if you will, in the United States. And they were there to talk about prevention in practice, because we are going to have to get away from, all right, these calves came in, they're sick, we're going to have to just shoot them up with a whole bunch of antibiotics, because antibiotics are now the enemy, just like Ralgro and growth hormones were recently. Now it's turned to antibiotics. So they're saying, all right, we're going to have to do a better job with vaccinations. So that's where the industry is going, is trying to do a better job with prevention. So that's what we talked about with the vets there in San Diego.
Speaking of hormones, I'm going to float you a thought that I heard a speaker years ago say about hormones in meat and really the true statistics and in milk. He said, he compared it to, what do you do to get a stud horse or a bull ready to, in breeding season? You show that bull or stud horse the females, and it gets them ready to go. In today's society, with kids, with the young ladies maturing faster, he compared it to images they see regularly on TV. Now I compare it to images they see on social media, that instead of blaming it on the hormones, it's a visual, cultural thing that is making kids mature faster. Have you ever heard that, and am I all wet here, and is he all wet?
I don't know about the imagery that they are represented to, but I would say there's the other part of it that people sort of forget. Sometimes it's about nutrition also. We know that these kids that we had 100 years ago, we still had poor folks living in tenements that were, eating essentially gruel. People are maturing a bit more. They're a little bit bigger. We're just a little bit taller. We're a bit more sexually mature at a younger age, and most sites would say, hey, this probably is about human nutrition versus the hormones. But again, our consumers, since today's theme was social consciousness, and we talked about ugly fruit, and we talked about feelings, and remember, just like the average consumer now doesn't need a pedigree dog, they will say that they adopted a rescue dog. They can be against hormones. They can be against judicious use of antibiotics in meat animals, not because it's going to affect them, because they're still going to eat very, very well. They can do it because they can go to bed at night and say, I did something good. I saved the world. It's all about feeling that you changed the world with your consumer. And that's the best part ever, Flint. Now, when they can boycott your rodeo or buy ugly fruit or only get hormone-free beef, they can say, I did this to make the world a better place. Now, did they really do anything hard? Did they actually go out and build a home for some poor homeless person? No, they just spent $5 at the grocery store, and that's a cheap, cheap price for social credit, which is exactly why they do it.
So many examples I could use. But Damian, I want you to know that there are a lot of nights I go to bed and I think back on my day and I think, I didn't do a damn thing good. Just so you know.
You did a number of things good. You entertained and enlightened America, and that is more valuable than people would ever realize. You gave those people something to live for, to be excited about. And here I am out here giving people comedy and commentary on the business of food and business. You know what, about those beef veterinarians, I closed up with, you obviously love your job, but you're going to have to continue to reinvent how you do things. Why? Because it's not like the old days where the vet comes out and, you're going to be treating animals differently. We're going to probably treat them a bit less. We're going to use a different battery of medication. Some of the farm people aren't going to have you out to do the jobs you did 10 and 30 and 50 years ago because things are a little different in agriculture. I said, but I know you love your job. You will reinvent yourself, and here's why. You must love what you do, because who else would spend 8 years in school to have a job and have to shove their arm up a butt of a cow?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Our horse vets aren't doing anything less because I pay the vet bills. And so I know the horse business is keeping them in business. Listen, Damian, it is great. We will schedule in a few weeks. You bring something to the show we've been looking for, and it's just great to talk to you. I know all our listeners appreciate it. Let's talk soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, Flint.
You got it. Damian Mason, always full of great statistics, great information, just great things in general.